and welcome to this episode of Autumn Things I Had Never Experienced Before Moving to the UK from America. This is from a Florida girl, so keep that in mind. Now, first on my list, though we use the word autumn in America, we typically prefer the word fall. British people don't really say the word fall. It's an Americanized thing if they do say it, and so people did understand what I meant by fall, but my natural inclination is to call it fall, whereas here in the UK, they call it autumn. Next on my list is seasons in general. The entire season I had never experienced in Florida, so actually I should have led with that. The entire season of autumn was brand new to me because in Florida, it's green all the time. It's hot and it's green the whole year. And we didn't have maybe the leaves kind of changed on the occasional tree, but we didn't have jumping in leaves autumn. We didn't have colder nights and chilly weather. I mean, it was still pretty hot. It was just less hot. Now, of course, plenty of places in the US do experience full season, so this isn't a US to UK thing. This was a Florida to the UK thing, but yeah. Autumn was completely new to me as a concept before moving here. The next autumn British thing on my list that I had never heard of was bonfire night, or a Guy Fawkes night, which happens on November 5th every single year, where sometimes it's called fireworks night because typically that's the main event. There's a bonfire, fireworks go off, people eat hamburgers and hot dogs in a local field. Typically there's some sort of fundraiser for the local community or local school that puts the event on, and Americans don't have this holiday, should I call it a holiday? Which makes sense because it comes from British history and the history of Guy Fawkes and has nothing to do with America, so we don't do it. November 5th is just another day. In America, typically November 4th is going to be our election day, so on November 5th there may be fireworks and bonfires for the wrong or right reason, but it has nothing to do with Guy Fawkes night.
Hey Kalyn from the past, can I just interrupt you briefly to ask our viewers one question? Have you ever thought to yourself, I could use more of Girl Gone London in my life? Likely you have not, probably only my mom has, but if you're interested in exclusive videos and a rambling podcast hosted by yours truly, join the community at the Girl Gone London Patreon by clicking the link in the description. There are lots of Patreon-only videos to enjoy as well as behind-the-scenes content which might appeal to you if you are not that commenter who told me last month to not forget that no one actually cares about me as a person. Thanks for that, sir, and thank you for listening. Now back to the video.
And next on my list is conkers. Never heard of a conker before moving to the UK, thought they were talking about conquering a continent. But no, conkers are the seeds of a type of chestnut tree, which look like this. And people pick them up, they play a game that I don't really know. Someone tell me the rules down below because I feel like this is a British childhood thing that I've completely missed out on, so I'm still in the dark, but I had never heard of a conker before moving to the UK and still don't know what the game actually entails, so yeah, comment below and let me know. The next thing on my list is roast dinner, and I think this is a little bit of a cheat because roast dinner is not just specifically an autumn thing. It happens throughout the year, but I feel like people typically don't have a roast dinner as much in the summer. So when you're heading into the autumn is when the roast dinner comes back as a staple in the house or a get together on a Sunday or a Saturday or really anytime. You can have a roast dinner anytime. There aren't actually rules, but typically it's a Sunday thing. And I had never heard of a roast dinner before moving to the UK. We have a Thanksgiving dinner, which people say is similar. It's not entirely similar. It's pretty different, but roast dinner as a British institution was, to me, it can be considered an autumn thing that I had never heard of. And when we're talking about a roast dinner, I'm gonna get even more specific and claim this as an autumn thing, parsnips. I had never had a parsnip before moving to the UK. I had never heard of a parsnip, and that I think is more to do with being a Florida thing where it's not a root vegetable that we eat that much. I think further north in the northeast of America, might be a little bit more common, but in Florida, not really a part of our cuisine at all. And parsnips also can be eaten any time of the year, but again, it kind of relates to that Sunday roast, and I feel like The season for having roast parsnips starts coming into play in September, October, November, which is also autumn. I will say that I love a parsnip. I love a roasted parsnip. I love when you like cut them relatively thin so that it's mostly just like the edges that are all crispy and burnt and sweet, and I'm a fan of the parsnip. What an exciting video this is for you all, learning about my thoughts on parsnips. Next on my list is another cheat one because I know it can fit into the winter as well, but I'm gonna go with mulled wine is an autumn thing, and I feel like I have evidence because mulled wine is almost always offered at a bonfire night event, which is November 5th, which is autumn. So it can be considered allowed to be an autumn thing as well. Mulled wine is not entirely unheard of in America, but it's certainly much less common than in the UK. I feel like everyone in the UK has had it. Everyone in the UK expects it when this time of year, it's been a type of year. When this time of year rolls around, Americans, not so much. It's not a given that it's gonna be at an event in the autumn or the winter. That brings me to the end of this fascinating list of autumn things that aren't as popular in the USA. I would love to hear your thoughts on what autumn means to you in the UK, because this season I felt like I had the most difficulty pinpointing what people do in the autumn. Summer, easy. Winter, also easy. We can talk about pantos. We can talk about like Christmas pudding. Summer, we can talk about summer fates. We can talk about like Mr. Whippy. But the autumn, what is quintessentially British for you about the autumn? I would love to hear. Let me know in the comments down below. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.